there, welcome to The Print. I'm Amna Begum Ansari. Ilhan Omar is one of only two Muslim women ever elected to the United States Congress and one of the most recognizable progressive politicians in American politics today. She has advocated for universal health care, living wages, and addressing climate changes. The ideas and policy I am familiar with and do support it in with all my mights. Um, Her personal story is equally remarkable. Umar was born in Somalia, and her family, fleeing a civil war, spent several years in a refugee camp in Kenya before eventually resettling in the US in the 1990s. She went on to make history as the first African refugee and the first woman of color to represent Minnesota in Congress. She is seen as someone willing to stand up to powerful interests and push back against those who attack minorities, immigrants, and vulnerable communities. She can be a hero for many. But is that the entire truth? It is comforting to believe in heroes, but reality is rarely that simple. When Umar suggested that Indian Muslims are in the eighth stage of genocide, I cannot say I was entirely surprised. I did find the claim exaggerated even for her. Like many Western politicians, activists, and influencers, Omar often seems willing to speak with great confidence about societies she understands only from a distance. A few headlines, stray reports, and social media narratives are taken up to sweeping statements about the lives of millions of people. Having lived the reality of being an Indian Muslim, I don't argue that there are no problem to address. And as a Pashmanda Muslim, I know there are inequalities within the Muslim society itself. Muslim women continue to fight for greater rights and opportunities. And yes, there are times when some of us face discrimination or become targets because of our religious identity. But prejudice and social tensions are hardly problems unique to India. I have only recently watched anti-immigrant rights in Belfast. So an international figure speaking on my community's behalf without any real understanding of our situation is simply disappointing. Omar didn't care to do any real research on the lives of Indian Muslims. She reduced complicated realities into a slogan that generate attention. Indian Muslims live in a democracy and are perfectly capable of voicing our struggles on every front. We are an integral part of India. We make up around 14% of Indian population, the third largest Muslim population in the world. We are not a small, voiceless community hidden from public life. We shape India's economy, culture, politics, and national identity. From language to architecture, and from cinema to music, our contribution is woven into the story of modern India. Former President APJ Kalam is remembered as India's missile man and still remains one of the most respected figures in India's history. Muslims have served honorably in armed force, police, and intelligence services, defending the nation and its borders. Entrepreneurs such as Ajim Premji have built global companies and donated crores towards education and social development. Countless Muslim artisans, weavers, mechanics, and workers continue to contribute to the everyday functioning of India's economy. Needless to say, Indian Muslims are not a community on the verge of extermination. We vote, we contest election, we debate, we criticize, we organize, and we participate in public life like every other community in this country. That is our reality. We are not a silent people waiting for outsider to speak for us. This is why I find the language of genocide difficult to take seriously. I'm not against international figures speaking about minority rights in India. In fact, I welcome it. What disappoints me is when people speak with such a certainty uh, while understanding so little of the reality they are talking about. As an Indian Muslim, I feel betrayed by Omar's statement. I would welcome criticism or concern from someone who has shown the same commitment to minority rights everywhere. Someone who has spoken with equal passion about Hindu facing persecution in Pakistan, the struggle of minorities in Bangladesh, the persecution of Nigerian Christian, or the historic trauma of Kashmiri Hindus. We Indian Muslim call it iman ka pakka hona, being firm and consistent with your principle. Unfortunately, that consistency is missing in Omar. The Democrat politician readily criticize India, and she can if she wants to, but she does not direct the same scrutiny toward Pakistan, where minority communities continue to face systematic discrimination. A member of minority community cannot become president or prime minister in Pakistan. Hundreds of girls from minority communities are reportedly abducted, raped, and forcibly converted in the country every year. Forget criticism. Omar often seems friendly and supportive towards Pakistan. Even if one were to argue that foreign policy is a different matter, I remember when journalist Tikku Singh spoke about the suffering of both Kashmiri Muslim and Kashmiri Pandit. Instead of engaging with Tikku's point, Omar at the time seemed more interested in questioning her journalistic objectivity. What stayed with me was not the disagreement itself, but the complete lack of sympathy for Pandits. There was no space for a minority community that had been forced to leave its homeland. This is where my disappointment stemmed from. I expect a politician who speaks so passionately about human rights and minorities to show the same empathy to every victim without caring about identity. I welcome anyone who wishes to speak about the challenges faced by Indian Muslim. Difficult conversations are necessary, and external voices can sometimes draw attention to issues that deserve greater scrutiny. But these voices must belong to people who have put effort into learning our reality. Most importantly, I want them to see us as we are, not as a victims waiting to be rescued, not as a symbols in their political struggle, but as citizens with agency. When the voice comes free from prejudice and agenda, rooted in a genuine concern for humanity, I will be the first one to endorse it.